The night belongs to you. There is a moment just before sleep when the mask you wear all day begins to slip. The careful smile fades. The shoulders drop. The breath deepens. In this threshold space, between the performance of daylight and the honesty of dreams, something true begins to stir. You have spent so many years being who others needed you to be. The good child, the responsible one, the person who never complains, never breaks, never shows the cracks that run deeper than anyone knows. But here, in the gentle darkness, those cracks become doorways. Tonight is different. Tonight you are not trying to be anyone but yourself. The self you have forgotten how to find. The self that has been waiting, patient as stone, for you to remember the way home. The world outside continues its endless rushing. But you have stepped out of that current. You have found the quiet shore where healing begins, where the wounded parts of you can finally speak their truth without fear of judgment or dismissal. You are tired of carrying burdens that were never yours to bear. Tired of smiling when your heart is breaking. Tired of pretending that everything's fine when everything feels like it is falling apart. This exhaustion is not weakness. It is the first honest thing you have felt in years. In this moment, you give yourself permission to feel what you have been afraid to feel, to acknowledge what you have been afraid to name, the sadness that lives in your chest like a stone, the anger that burns quietly in your belly, the fear that whispers its doubts in the small hours of the morning. These feelings are not your enemies. They are messengers, carrying wisdom from the depths of your being. They have been trying to tell you something important, something your busy mind has been too frightened to hear. But tonight, in the sanctuary of stillness, you are ready to listen. The tears that come are not tears of defeat. They are tears of recognition, of homecoming, of finally allowing yourself to be human in a world that demands perfection. Each tear carries with it a piece of the armor you no longer need to wear. You have been so strong for so long that you have forgotten how to be soft, how to bend without breaking, how to let others see the vulnerable places where your light shines through the cracks. But vulnerability is not weakness. It is the birthplace of courage, creativity, and connection. Tonight you remember that your scars are not shameful marks of failure. They are evidence of battles fought and survived, proof that you have the strength to endure what once seemed impossible. Each scar tells a story of resilience, of a spirit that refused to be broken no matter how hard the world tried to break it. The child within you has been waiting for this moment, the part of you that still believes in magic, in wonder, in the possibility that tomorrow might be different from today. This inner child has been silenced by years of harsh criticism, unrealistic expectations, and the cruel voice that says you are not enough. But that voice is not your voice. It belongs to every person who ever made you feel small, every system that demanded your conformity, every moment when you chose safety over authenticity. Tonight you reclaim your own voice, the one that speaks with kindness, the one that remembers your worth. You begin to see that the very things you have tried to hide from the world are the things that make you most human. Your sensitivity is not a flaw, but a gift. Your emotional depth is not a burden, but a well of wisdom. Your struggles are not signs of weakness, but evidence of a heart that feels deeply in a world that often feels nothing at all. The path forward is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you have always been beneath the layers of expectation and conditioning. It is about peeling away the false selves you have constructed until you reach the bedrock of your authentic being. This process is not comfortable. Growth rarely is. Like a seed breaking through soil, there is a necessary destruction of what was in order to make room for what wants to become. You are both the seed and the gardener, tending to your own becoming with patience and compassion. The darkness you have feared is not your enemy. It is the womb of transformation, the place where new life begins. In the depths of your darkest moments, something precious is being born. Something that could not emerge in the harsh light of judgment, but only in the gentle darkness of acceptance. You are learning to trust the process of your own unfolding. To understand that healing is not a destination, but a journey. Not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. Each step forward, no matter how small, is an act of courage in a world that profits from your fear. The love you have been seeking exists within you. It has always been there, waiting beneath the layers of self-doubt and criticism. This love is not conditional on your achievements or dependent on others' approval. It is the unconditional acceptance of your own being, flaws and all. You're beginning to understand that your pain has purpose. It has been your teacher, your guide, your catalyst for growth. Without it, you would never have developed the compassion that now flows from your heart like a river. Without it, you would never have learned to recognize suffering in others and offer the healing presence you wish you had received. The loneliness you have carried is transforming into solitude, no longer the ache of disconnection, but the richness of self-communion. In learning to be alone without feeling lonely, you discover the companionship of your own soul. You realize that you are never truly alone because you carry within you the wisdom of all who came before and the hope of all who will come after. Your story is still being written. The chapters of pain and struggle were not the end but the beginning of something greater. The phoenix rises not in spite of the ashes, but because of them. You are that phoenix, discovering your wings in the very fires that once threatened to consume you. Tonight, you make peace with your imperfections. You honor your struggles as sacred ground. You embrace your wholeness, which includes both light and shadow, both joy and sorrow, both strength and vulnerability. This is what it means to be human. This is what it means to be alive. The journey continues, but you no longer walk it alone. You walk it with the wisdom you have earned, the compassion you have cultivated, and the love you have finally learned to give yourself. Each step is a prayer, each breath a blessing, each moment an opportunity to choose healing over harm. You're ready now to carry this peace into tomorrow, to face the world not as someone who has been broken, but as someone who has been broken open. The difference is everything. In the breaking open, you find not destruction, but expansion, not ending, but beginning. The night wraps around you like a mother's embrace, holding you safe as you rest in the knowledge of your own worth. You sleep now not as someone running from themselves, but as someone finally coming home. The mirror in the forest. The dreams that visit you tonight are different from the ones that came before. These are not the anxious loops of worry or the chaotic fragments of daily stress. These are the dreams that speak in symbols, in whispers from the deeper chambers of your being. You find yourself walking through a forest you have never seen but somehow know. The trees are ancient, their roots intertwined beneath the earth like fingers holding hands. Each step you take feels both foreign and familiar, as if you are retracing a path you walked long ago but have forgotten. The air here is different. Thicker with meaning, alive with possibility. Every shadow holds a secret. Every shaft of sunlight reveals a truth you have been avoiding. This is not the surface world where you perform your daily roles. This is the inner landscape where your authentic self has been waiting. In this forest, you cannot hide behind the masks you wear in waking life. Here, pretense falls away like autumn leaves. You are seen for who you truly are, not who others need you to be. The relief is overwhelming. For the first time in years, you can simply exist without explanation or justification. You come to a clearing where a still pool reflects the sky. But when you peer into its surface, you see not your familiar face, but the face of the child you once were. Eyes wide with wonder, unmarked by disappointment. This child looks at you with such hope, such trust, that your heart breaks open all over again. This is the part of you that still believes in magic, the part that sees possibility where others see only problems, the part that loves without condition and trusts without reservation. You had thought this child was gone, buried beneath years of harsh reality and necessary compromise. But here they are, whole and radiant, reaching out to you across the pool of memory. They want to show you something you have forgotten. They want to remind you of dreams you abandoned, of joy you sacrificed, of the person you were before the world taught you to be afraid. You realize that every criticism you have ever absorbed, every harsh word you have ever spoken to yourself, has been another stone thrown at this child. Every time you called yourself stupid, worthless, unlovable, this innocent part of you absorbed the blow. No wonder you feel so broken. You've been at war with your own heart. The tears that fall into the pool create ripples that distort the reflection. When the water settles, you see your face as it is now, but different, softer somehow, more accepting. The hard edges of self-judgment have begun to blur, replaced by something that looks almost like compassion. You understand now that healing is not about fixing what is broken, but about remembering what was never broken to begin with. Beneath all the wounds and scars, beneath all the fear and shame, this child remains intact. This is your true face, the one you wore before you learned to hate yourself. The forest around you begins to shift and change. The trees rearrange themselves into new patterns, creating paths you had not noticed before. Some lead deeper into darkness, others toward distant light. You realize that you have choices here that you do not have in waking life. You can explore any direction, face any truth, heal any wound. One path draws your attention more than the others. It is narrow and overgrown, as if it has not been travelled for a very long time. Thorns guard its entrance, and shadows obscure its destination. Everything in you wants to choose an easier way, but something deeper, wiser, whispers that this is the path you need to take. You step onto the forgotten trail, feeling the thorns catch at your clothing, your skin. Each small wound reminds you of pain you have carried, trauma you have endured, but you do not turn back. For the first time, you are willing to face what you have spent your life avoiding. The path leads to a cave hidden behind a waterfall of tears. Your tears, you realize. All the grief you never allowed yourself to feel. All the sorrow you swallowed to spare others discomfort. The water is warm and healing, washing away the dust of pretense as you pass through. Inside the cave, sitting by a small fire, is a figure shrouded in shadow. You cannot see their face, but their presence feels ancient and knowing. They gesture for you to sit, and you find yourself drawn to the warmth of their flame. When they speak, their voice is your voice, but deeper, older, wiser. They tell you that you've been running from yourself for so long that you've forgotten what you're running toward. They show you visions of the person you could become if you stopped fighting your own nature. Not perfect, but whole. Not without pain, but no longer defined by it. This shadow figure is not your enemy, as you have always believed. They are the keeper of everything you have disowned, everything you have deemed unacceptable about yourself. Your anger, your selfishness, your need for attention and love. These are not sins to be confessed, but aspects of humanity to be integrated. You begin to see that the war you have been fighting is not between good and evil, but between acceptance and rejection. Every part of yourself that you have cast into darkness has been trying to find its way back to the light. Not to be destroyed, but to be transformed through love. The shadow speaks of wounds that become wisdom, pain that becomes compassion, a fear that becomes courage. They show you how every struggle you have endured has been carving out space within you for greater love, deeper understanding, truer connection with others who suffer as you have suffered. You realize that your sensitivity, which you have always seen as weakness, is actually your greatest strength. It allows you to feel not only your own pain, but the pain of the world. This empathy is not a burden, but a gift, a bridge between your heart and the hearts of all who struggle to find their way home to themselves. The conversation with your shadow continues through the night, weaving together threads of memory and possibility, fear and hope. You speak truths you have never dared voice, admit needs you have never allowed yourself to have. In the safe darkness of the cave, nothing is too shameful to acknowledge, too frightening to face. As dawn approaches in your dream, the shadow figure begins to fade but not disappear. They merge with you, becoming not something separate to be battled, but part of your wholeness to be embraced. You feel the integration like a deep exhale you have been holding for decades. When you emerge from the cave, the forest has changed again. The trees are in bloom, their branches heavy with fruit you do not recognize but somehow know is meant to nourish you. The path that was once narrow and thorny is now wide and welcoming, inviting you to explore all the aspects of yourself you have yet to discover. You walk this path with new eyes, seeing beauty where before you saw only darkness, finding meaning where before you found only confusion. The journey is far from over, but you're no longer traveling alone. You carry with you the wisdom of your shadow, the innocence of your inner child, and the growing strength of your authentic self. The pool in the clearing reflects a different face now when you pass it again. Still your face, but somehow more complete. The fragmented pieces of your identity are beginning to come together, forming a mosaic of self-acceptance that is more beautiful than any perfection you once sought. You understand now that the forest exists not only in dreams, but in every quiet moment when you turn inward. It is always there, waiting for you to visit, to explore, to discover new aspects of the vast landscape of your own being. The journey home to yourself is not a destination, but a way of travelling through life. As the dream begins to fade and waking consciousness calls you back, you make a promise to the forest, to your shadow, to your inner child. You will not forget what you have learned here. You will carry this wisdom into the daylight world, where it is needed most. The peace you feel is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of integration. You are no longer at war with yourself, but in dialogue. No longer hiding from your truth, but slowly learning to embody it. This is the beginning of true healing, the first step on the path to becoming who you have always been meant to be. The language of wounds. In the space between sleeping and waking, a deeper conversation begins. It is the language your body has been speaking all along, the vocabulary of tension and release, of holding and letting go. Every ache tells a story. Every knot of muscle holds a memory. Every shallow breath carries the weight of words you never spoke. You've been taught to ignore this language, to push through pain as if it were merely an inconvenience. Take a pill, move on, stay productive. But your body is not a machine to be fixed when it breaks down. It is a wise messenger, carrying information from the depths of your being to the surface of your awareness. The headaches that visit you carry the weight of thoughts you were afraid to think. The tension in your shoulders holds the burden of responsibilities that were never yours to carry. The knot in your stomach speaks of emotions you swallowed rather than expressing, of truths you could not bear to digest. Tonight, you listen. Not with the impatient ear of someone seeking quick solutions, but with the patient attention of someone finally ready to understand. Your body has been trying to heal you all along, but you have been too busy, too frightened, too conditioned to pay attention. The pain in your chest is not just physical. It is the accumulated grief of a heart that has been asked to be strong when it needed to be soft, to be closed when it longed to be open. This heart has been broken so many times that it learned to build walls to protect itself, but walls that keep pain out also keep love from entering. You begin to breathe into these places of holding, sending your attention like gentle hands to massage the stories stored in your tissues. With each breath, something loosens. Not the pain itself, but your resistance to it. In the space of acceptance, transformation becomes possible. The memories that arise are not always clear or linear. They come as sensations, as colours, as wordless knowing. The feeling of being too much for the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally. The exhaustion of always being the one to compromise, to accommodate, to make things easy for everyone else. You remember the first time you learned to swallow your voice. How old were you? 5, 7, 12. The exact age matters less than the understanding that this was when you began the long process of betraying yourself in order to belong. Each time you chose safety over authenticity, your body absorbed the impact. But your body also remembers joy, the cellular memory of running free as a child, of dancing without self-consciousness, of laughing until your belly hurt. These memories are stored alongside the pain, waiting to be rediscovered. Your body knows how to heal because it knows how to feel alive. The shame you carry lives primarily in your nervous system, not in your thoughts. It is the feeling of being fundamentally flawed, unworthy of the love you crave. This shame was not born from your actions, but from the way others reacted to your needs, your emotions, your very existence. You were told that your sensitivity was weakness, your emotions were inconvenient, your needs were too much. But these messages were never true. They were the projections of people who could not handle their own pain, their own sensitivity, their own overwhelming needs. You absorbed their discomfort and made it your identity. The anger you have been afraid to feel lives in your jaw, your fists, your lower back. It is not the destructive rage you fear, but the healthy anger of boundaries violated, dignity trampled, voice silenced. This anger wants to protect you, to say no to what harms you, to fight for what you deserve. For so long you equated anger with violence, with loss of control, with becoming like those who hurt you, but there is a difference between anger that destroys and anger that protects. The first comes from unconsciousness, the second from love. Love for yourself, love for truth, love for what is sacred and worth defending. Your sexuality, too, has been touched by shame and confusion. The natural desires of your body became tangled with messages about purity and danger, worthiness and sin. You learned to disconnect from your own pleasure, to see your body as something to be controlled rather than celebrated. But pleasure is your birthright. Not just sexual pleasure, but the pleasure of existence itself. The pleasure of tasting food that nourishes you, of feeling sunlight on your skin, of moving your body in ways that bring joy. This capacity for pleasure is not selfish but essential. It is what makes life worth living. The patterns of protection your body developed were brilliant adaptations to impossible circumstances. The hypervigilance that exhausts you now once kept you safe. The people-pleasing that depletes you once earned you the love you needed to survive. The perfectionism that torments you once made you valuable to those who could not love you for who you were. But what served you then may be harming you now. The nervous system that was calibrated for survival in an unpredictable environment struggles to find peace in safety. Your body continues to brace for impact long after the danger has passed. Healing is not about forcing your body to relax, but about creating conditions where relaxation becomes possible. It is about proving to your nervous system, through consistent kindness and patience, that it is safe to let down your guard. This process cannot be rushed. Trust is rebuilt one gentle moment at a time. You begin to understand that your body is not your enemy, but your oldest friend. It has been with you through everything, holding your experiences when your mind could not bear them, carrying you forward when your spirit wanted to give up. It deserves your gratitude, not your criticism. The healing touch you seek does not have to come from another. You can learn to place your own hands on the places that hurt, to breathe love into the spaces that have known only tension. Your touch carries the medicine of self-compassion, the healing power of acceptance. As you explore this inner landscape of sensation and story, you discover that pain is not permanent. It is information, energy and motion, a call for attention and care. When you stop running from it and start listening to it, it begins to transform. Not always into pleasure, but into something more valuable, wisdom. The wisdom of your body tells you when to rest and when to move, when to engage and when to withdraw, when to speak and when to remain silent. This wisdom has been speaking to you all along, but now you are finally learning to hear its voice above the noise of expectations and demands. You realize that healing your relationship with your body is inseparable from healing your relationship with yourself. To love your body is to love the vessel that carries your spirit through this world. To honor your body is to honor the sacred temple of your existence. The integration that is happening now is not just psychological but somatic. Your nervous system is learning new patterns of response. Your muscles are remembering how to be soft. Your breath is finding its natural rhythm. This is healing at the cellular level, transformation that reaches into the very foundation of your being. Tonight you make a vow to listen more carefully to the language your body speaks, to respond with kindness rather than criticism, with curiosity rather than judgment, to see your physical form not as an inconvenience or a project to be perfected, but as a wise companion on the journey home to yourself. The conversation between mind and body that begins tonight will continue for the rest of your life. But now you have the tools to engage in this dialogue with respect and understanding. You know that your body's not just carrying you through life, but actively participating in your healing, your growth, your transformation. As sleep deepens and the conscious mind releases its grip, your body continues its work of integration and repair. In dreams, in rest, in the quiet hours of the night, the healing continues. Your body knows what to do. It has always known. Now finally, you are learning to trust its wisdom. The alchemy of acceptance. There comes a moment in every healing journey when you stop asking why this happened to you and start asking what you can learn from it. This shift is not about bypassing pain or pretending that suffering is always meaningful. It is about recognizing that you have a choice in how you hold your experiences, how you let them shape you. The alchemists of old believed that base metals could be transformed into gold through the application of sacred processes. They were not just talking about literal transformation, but about the work of turning the lead of human suffering into the gold of wisdom and compassion. You're engaged in this ancient work now, whether you know it or not. Every wound you have received carries within it the seed of a gift you can offer the world. The rejection you experienced taught you to recognize the pain of exclusion in others. The betrayal you endured helps you identify when someone's trust has been broken. The abandonment you felt allows you to spot the lonely ones in a crowd and offer them the presence you wished you had received. This is not about being grateful for abuse or pretending that trauma was somehow good for you. It is about recognizing that your survival of these experiences has given you a unique form of medicine that the world desperately needs. You have become a wounded healer, someone whose scars have become sources of strength. The parts of your story that you have been most ashamed of are often the parts that connect you most deeply to others. Your struggles with depression help you recognize the darkness in other souls. Your battles with addiction give you insight into the compulsive patterns that trap so many. Your history of unhealthy relationships teaches you to spot the warning signs and offer better alternatives. But this transformation does not happen automatically. It requires the conscious choice to see your pain as compost for growth, rather than evidence of your unworthiness. It requires the courage to share your story not for sympathy, but for connection, not for attention, but for healing, both yours and others. The shame that has kept you isolated begins to dissolve as you realize that your experiences are not unique violations of cosmic justice, but part of the universal human experience of learning to love in a world that often seems designed to prevent it. Everyone you meet is fighting battles you know nothing about, carrying wounds you cannot see, struggling with demons that look remarkably like your own. This recognition does not minimize your pain, but places it in a larger context of shared humanity. You are not alone in your struggles, and your struggles do not make you special. This paradox is liberating. You can stop performing your pain as a way of getting attention and start processing it as a way of gaining wisdom. The victim identity that may have protected you for a while begins to feel too small to contain who you are becoming. Yes, things happen to you that should not have happened. Yes, you were hurt by people who should have loved you better, but you're not condemned to remain forever defined by what was done to you. This does not mean you have to forgive everyone who hurt you or pretend that their actions were acceptable. Forgiveness is not about them anyway. It is about freeing yourself from the burden of carrying their toxicity in your body, their cruelty in your heart, their limited vision of your worth in your self-concept. Some forgiveness happens in an instant, a sudden release that feels like setting down a heavy burden you did not realize you were carrying. Other forgiveness unfolds slowly, like a flower opening petal by petal over many seasons. Both are valid, both are sacred. The timeline of your healing belongs to you alone. The anger you have feared is beginning to reveal its true nature, not the destructive rage that consumes everything in its path, but the clean fire that burns away what is false and illuminates what is true. This anger is on your side. It wants to protect your tender heart, defend your sacred boundaries, fight for your right to exist authentically in the world. Learning to feel your anger without becoming it is one of the great arts of emotional maturity. You can acknowledge the heat without being burned by it, honor the message without being controlled by the emotion. Anger, when it is conscious and clean, becomes the energy of positive change. The sadness you have been afraid to feel fully is not a bottomless pit that will swallow you whole. It is a finite ocean that, when crossed with courage and support, delivers you to shores of deeper compassion and more authentic joy. On the other side of your unshed tears waits a heart that is broken open rather than simply broken. This broken open heart is not a wound but expansion. It makes room for more love, more beauty, more connection than your defended heart could ever hold. The cracks in your armor become the places where your light shines through most brightly, touching others with the radiance of someone who has descended into darkness and returned bearing gifts. The perfectionism that has driven you for so long begins to lose its grip as you discover the beauty of being human rather than trying to be superhuman. Your mistakes become teachers rather than evidence of failure. Your limitations become invitations to interdependence rather than proof of inadequacy. You start to see that the goal was never to become invulnerable, but to become authentic. Not to avoid all pain, but to increase your capacity to feel both pain and joy more deeply. Not to control every outcome, but to trust the process of your own unfolding. The control you have tried to maintain over your life, and the lives of others, reveals itself as an illusion that has exhausted you without delivering the security you sought. True security comes not from controlling external circumstances, but from trusting your ability to navigate whatever circumstances arise. This trust is not naive optimism, but earned confidence. You have survived everything life has thrown at you so far. You have found ways to keep going when the path seemed impossible, to keep loving when your heart was shattered, to keep growing when everything in you wanted to shrink back into safe but small existence. The resilience you have developed is not just personal, but transpersonal. It connects you to the resilience of your ancestors, who survived wars and famines and heartbreak so that you could exist. It connects you to the resilience of nature, which finds ways to bloom even in the harshest conditions. You begin to see your life not as a random series of events, but as a curriculum designed to teach you exactly what you need to learn to become who you are meant to be. This does not mean that someone or something is deliberately putting obstacles in your path, but that you have the power to extract meaning and growth from whatever obstacles appear. The meaning you create from your experiences becomes the foundation for your future choices. The story you tell about what happened to you determines whether you remain trapped in patterns of victimhood or step into patterns of empowerment. Both stories can be true simultaneously, but only one serves your growth. As this alchemy of acceptance deepens, you notice changes in how you relate to others. You become less reactive to their emotions because you're more comfortable with your own. You become less controlling in your relationships because you trust the process of authentic connection. You become less desperate for their approval because you are learning to approve of yourself. The people in your life begin to respond differently to this new version of you. Some are drawn to your increased authenticity and emotional availability. Others, particularly those who benefited from your old patterns of people-pleasing and self-sacrifice, may resist the changes. This resistance is information, not instruction. You learn to hold space for others' reactions without taking responsibility for managing their emotions. You discover that you can be compassionate without being compliant, loving without being limitless, kind without being a doormat. These distinctions become the foundation of healthy relationships with others and with yourself. The transformation that is happening within you cannot be rushed or forced. Like all natural processes, it has its own timing, its own seasons of growth and rest, expansion and integration. Your job is not to hurry the process, but to trust it, tend it, and honor its organic unfolding. Tonight, as sleep carries you deeper into the healing darkness, this alchemy continues its sacred work. In the depths of your being, lead is becoming gold, wounds are becoming wisdom, pain is becoming power. Not the power that dominates others, but the power that liberates both yourself and those whose lives you touch. You're becoming who you have always been, beneath the layers of conditioning and wounding. You are remembering the gold that was always there, waiting to be discovered, waiting to shine. The healing waters. Deep beneath the surface of your conscious mind flows a river of healing. You have always known it was there, even when the noise of daily life drowned out the sound of its current. In quiet moments, in times of desperate need, in the space between thoughts, you have felt its presence. Tonight you wade into these healing waters with intention and trust. This river has no beginning and no end. It connects you to every person who has ever sought healing, every soul who has ever struggled to find their way home to themselves. The water is warm and luminous, carrying the accumulated wisdom of all who have walked the path of transformation before you. As you step into the current, you feel the gentle pressure of water against your skin, washing away layers of accumulated pain and protection. Each wave that passes through you carries away something you no longer need to hold. The criticism that was never yours to internalize, the expectations that were impossible to meet, the love that came with conditions you could never fulfill. The water does not judge what it washes away. It simply flows, accepting whatever you are ready to release. Some of what dissolves has been with you for so long that you had forgotten it was not part of your essential nature. The hypervigilance that kept you scanning for danger in every interaction. The perfectionism that turned every task into a test of your worthiness. The need to prove your value through constant productivity and achievement. As these patterns release their grip, you feel lighter. Not the artificial lightness of denial or the brittle lightness of suppression, but the authentic lightness of someone who is no longer carrying burdens that were never theirs to bear. Your shoulders drop. Your breath deepens. Your jaw unclenches. In the deeper currents of the river, you encounter memories that have been waiting patiently for your attention. Not the traumatic memories that ambush you with their intensity, but the quieter ones that hold keys to understanding. The moment you decided you were too much for others to handle, the day you concluded that your needs were inconvenient, the gradual process by which you learned to abandon yourself in order to be accepted by others. These memories arise without the charge they once carried. The river has transformed them from sources of pain into sources of understanding. You see now how each decision to betray yourself was actually an attempt to protect yourself. how each compromise of your authenticity was a strategy for survival in circumstances where being real felt dangerous. There is no judgment for these adaptations, only compassion for the child who did what they had to do to make it through. That child made choices that served you then, even if they no longer serve you now. You honor their ingenuity, their resilience, their profound will to survive and connect, even in the face of rejection and misunderstanding. The healing waters carry you deeper, to places where words lose their meaning and only feeling remains. Here, in the wordless depths, you encounter the grief you have been afraid to feel. Not just grief for what you lost, but grief for what you never had. The unconditional love that every child deserves, the safety that should have been your birthright, the acceptance that would have allowed you to bloom naturally instead of contorting yourself to fit others' expectations. This grief is vast and ancient, connecting you to every person who has ever felt unseen, unloved, misunderstood. It is not your grief alone, but the collective grief of humanity, struggling to remember how to love without conditions, how to accept without demands, how to nurture without controlling. As you allow yourself to feel this grief fully, something remarkable happens. It does not destroy you as you feared it would. Instead, it opens you. Your heart expands to make room for feelings you never knew you could contain. In touching the depths of sorrow, you discover that you are deep enough to hold it all, the pain and the beauty, the loss and the love, the broken and the whole. The river carries you past the landscape of your personal wounds into the territory of collective healing. Here you see how your individual journey of recovery is part of a larger movement of consciousness, awakening to the possibility of living differently. You're not healing just for yourself, but for all the generations that came before you who could not find their way to this healing, and for all the generations that will come after who will benefit from the patterns you break and the love you reclaim. Your ancestors' unhealed trauma lives in your nervous system, but so does their resilience, their capacity for love, their determination to create better lives for their children. You are the fruit of their dreams, the answer to their prayers, the fulfillment of their hopes for something better. Through your healing, you honor both their struggles and their aspirations. The healing you do now ripples forward through time, creating new possibilities for the children in your life and the children who will come after them. They will not have to carry the same burdens you inherited because you have chosen to transform them rather than pass them on. This is how intergenerational healing works. One person at a time, choosing consciousness over unconsciousness, love over fear, healing over harm. In the deepest part of the river, you encounter a presence that feels both ancient and eternal. It speaks without words, communicates through direct knowing, loves without condition or reservation. This presence has been with you always, even when you felt most alone. It is the part of you that is connected to everything, the part that knows your true nature beneath all the conditioning and wounding. This presence reminds you that you're not just healing from trauma, but awakening to truth. The truth that you were never broken, only wounded. The truth that you were never unlovable, only unloved by people who could not access their own capacity for love. The truth that you were never too much, only more than some people were able to receive. The water around you begins to glow with an inner light, as if your recognition of this truth has activated something dormant in the healing current. This light penetrates every cell of your being, rewriting old programs of unworthiness and fear with new codes of belonging and courage. You feel the shift happening not just in your mind, but in your body, in your energy field, in the very fabric of your being. As you float in this luminous healing space, you understand that the river has always been here, waiting for you to remember how to find it. It exists not just in dreams and meditation, but in every moment when you choose self-compassion over self-criticism, presence over performance, authenticity over approval. The healing waters begin to carry you gently back toward the surface of consciousness, but you know now that you can return to this river whenever you need to. It is not a place you visit, but a reality you inhabit. It flows through your daily life in moments of kindness to yourself, in decisions that honor your truth, in relationships that celebrate rather than diminish your authentic self. You emerge from the water transformed, not into someone different, but into someone more fully yourself. The healing continues even as you step onto the shore of waking consciousness, integrated into every breath you take, every choice you make, every love you offer to yourself and others. The garden of becoming. In the liminal space between dream and dawn, you find yourself in a garden unlike any you have ever seen. This is not the manicured landscape of human design, but the wild, organic beauty of nature, allowed to flourish according to its own wisdom. Here, nothing grows in straight lines or perfect symmetry. Everything unfolds according to its unique timing and pattern. The soil beneath your feet is rich and dark, composted from everything that has died to make new life possible. You recognize in this earth the remnants of your old self, the person you had to stop being in order to become who you are meant to be, the fears you composted into courage, the wounds you transformed into wisdom. The closed heart you broke open into compassion. Each plant in this garden represents an aspect of your becoming. Some are tiny seedlings just beginning to push through the soil of your consciousness. Others are mature trees, their roots deep and their branches reaching toward a light. All attended by your attention, nourished by your acceptance, pruned by your discernment. Near the center of the garden grows a tree you have never seen before but somehow recognize as yours. Its trunk bears the scars of every storm it has weathered, every season it has survived. These marks do not weaken the tree but tell the story of its resilience. Each scar is a testament to its refusal to break, its determination to keep growing toward the light. You approach this tree with reverence, understanding that it represents your own journey of becoming. The roots, invisible but essential, represent the deep work you have done to heal your relationship with yourself. The trunk represents your growing strength and stability. The branches represent the many directions your growth can take. Some branches are thick and strong, representing the aspects of yourself you have cultivated with intention and care. Your capacity for empathy, grown from your own experience of pain. Your appreciation for authenticity, earned through years of living behind masks. Your commitment to truth, forged in the fires of disillusionment. Other branches are newer, more tentative, representing parts of yourself you're just beginning to explore. Perhaps creativity that was stifled in childhood is beginning to express itself. Perhaps assertiveness that was discouraged is finding its voice. Perhaps joy that was buried under responsibility is learning to dance again. You notice that some branches have been pruned, and you remember the necessary losses that made room for new growth. Relationships that no longer served your evolution. Beliefs that limited your expansion. Habits that kept you small and safe but prevented you from thriving. The pruning was painful at the time, but now you see its purpose. Every ending created space for a new beginning. Every loss made room for a greater gain. Every death of what was made possible the birth of what could be. Scattered throughout the garden are flowers you planted with your tears, their roots nourished by your willingness to feel what you had previously avoided. The grief you finally allowed yourself to process has become compassion for others who suffer. The anger you learned to feel cleanly has become boundaries that protect what you value. The fear you stopped running from has become wisdom about real versus imagined dangers. You see now that every emotion you have ever felt, even the ones you were taught to be ashamed of, has contributed to the richness of this inner landscape. Nothing was wasted, nothing was meaningless. Even your mistakes became fertilizer for future growth. In a quiet corner of the garden, you discover a small shrine dedicated to your inner child. Here grow the flowers of wonder, curiosity, and spontaneous joy. This sacred space represents your commitment to protecting and nurturing the part of you that still believes in magic, still trusts in love, still sees possibility where others see only problems. You kneel before this shrine and make offerings of the gifts your adult self can give to your inner child. The safety to express feelings without fear of rejection. The permission to need what you need without shame. The promise that you will never again abandon yourself for the comfort of others. Near the shrine, a small stream bubbles up from underground springs. This is the water of self-compassion, flowing from the wellspring of your own heart. You cup your hands and drink deeply, feeling the cool sweetness wash away the last traces of self-criticism and judgment. As you explore further, you discover that your garden is not isolated but connected to a vast network of other gardens. Paths wind between them, allowing for connection and mutual pollination. You realize that your healing does not happen in isolation but in relationship, your growth supported by the growth of others. Some visitors to your garden are drawn to specific plants or areas. Those who struggle with similar wounds are nourished by the medicine you have cultivated from your own healing. Those who are earlier in their journey find hope in seeing how beautifully you have learned to bloom despite the harsh conditions you once endured. You understand now that tending this inner garden is not selfish but necessary. The more beautiful and abundant it becomes, the more you have to offer others. The more fully you become yourself, the more permission you give others to do the same. The work of gardening never ends, but it is no longer work in the exhausting sense. It becomes a labour of love, a practice of presence, a commitment to ongoing growth and discovery. Some days you plant new seeds, some days you water what already grows, some days you simply sit in appreciation of what has flourished. You learn to trust the seasons of your growth. The times of dormancy are as necessary as the times of rapid expansion. The periods of shedding are as valuable as the periods of abundant flowering. Everything has its place in the cycle of becoming. The gardener you have become is both tender and fierce. Tender with the vulnerable new growth, fierce in protecting what you have cultivated from those who would trample or diminish it. You have learned to say yes to what serves your flowering, and no to what stunts your growth. As the first light of dawn begins to illuminate the garden, you understand that this inner landscape is not just a metaphor but a living reality. It exists in the choices you make each day, the thoughts you cultivate, the relationships you tend, the dreams you nurture into manifestation. You carry this garden with you always. In moments of stress, you can return here to remember what truly matters. In times of confusion, you can seek guidance from the wisdom growing within you. In periods of loneliness, you can find companionship in the beautiful beings you're becoming. The person who awakens from this night's journey is the same person who began it, yet transformed. Not by magic, but by the alchemy of attention, intention, and love. You have remembered what you always knew but had forgotten, that within you grows everything you need to live a life of meaning, connection, and joy. The voice of ancient knowing. There is a voice that speaks in the deepest chambers of your being, older than your personal history, wiser than your accumulated knowledge. It has been waiting patiently through all your years of seeking answers in external authorities, through all your attempts to find in others what could only be found within yourself. This voice does not shout to get your attention. It whispers. It suggests rather than demands, invites rather than insists. It speaks in the language of intuition, in the currency of feeling, in the dialect of dreams and sudden knowing. Tonight, in the stillness you have created, this voice finally has space to be heard. It begins by telling you something you have suspected but been afraid to believe, that you have always known more than you thought you knew. The answers you have been seeking outside yourself have been inside you all along, waiting for you to become quiet enough to hear them, brave enough to trust them. This knowing is not the product of education or experience, though it may work through both. It is the wisdom of your deepest self connected to the intelligence that grows flowers and heals wounds and knows when to sleep and when to wake. It is the part of you that has never forgotten who you are, beneath all the layers of who you thought you should be. The voice speaks of patterns you have lived but never fully understood. How you have repeatedly attracted situations that would force you to grow, people who would challenge you to become more authentic, experiences that would crack open your heart and expand your capacity for love. What felt like random suffering now reveals itself as a curriculum designed by your own soul, not because you are masochistic or because you deserve pain, but because you are committed to growth, to awakening, to becoming fully human in all its messy, beautiful complexity. The voice helps you see how every relationship has been a mirror, reflecting back aspects of yourself that needed attention. The people who triggered your deepest wounds were showing you where you still needed healing. The people who brought out your shadow were inviting you to reclaim disowned parts of yourself. The people who loved you imperfectly were teaching you to love yourself more completely. This understanding does not excuse harmful behavior or minimize real hurt, but it shifts your relationship to your experiences from victim to student, from passive recipient to active participant in your own evolution. You begin to see your life not as something that happened to you, but as something you have been co-creating all along. The voice reminds you of moments when you knew exactly what you needed, but talked yourself out of trusting that knowing. Times when your body said no, but your mind overrode the signal. Instances when your heart pointed in one direction, but you followed the safer, more logical path. Each time you betrayed your inner wisdom, you created a little more distance between yourself and your truth. Each time you chose what others expected over what you actually wanted, You strengthen the patterns that keep you from being authentic. But now you understand that these betrayals were not permanent damage but temporary forgetting. The wisdom is still there, has always been there, waiting for you to remember how to access it. It speaks through your body's sensations, through the emotions that arise unbidden, through the dreams that visit you in sleep, through the sudden insights that emerge from nowhere and everywhere at once. Learning to trust this inner voice is not about becoming selfish or ignoring the needs of others. It is about recognizing that you can only give authentically from a place of authentic fullness. When you honor your own truth, you give others permission to honor theirs. When you love yourself well, you become capable of loving others without attachment or agenda. The voice tells you that the spiritual path is not about transcending your humanity, but about fully embodying it. Not about becoming perfect, but about becoming real. Not about eliminating your shadow, but about dancing with it consciously. Not about achieving some final state of enlightenment, but about awakening more fully to each moment as it unfolds. You have been searching for God, for meaning, for purpose outside yourself, but the voice reveals that what you seek is also seeking you. The divine is not separate from your humanity, but expressed through it. Your struggles are not obstacles to your spiritual development, but opportunities for it. The shame you have carried about your imperfections begins to dissolve as you understand that your cracks are not flaws, but places where light enters. Your sensitivity is not weakness, but a gift. Your capacity to feel deeply is not a burden, but a blessing. Your struggles with darkness make your appreciation of a light more profound. This ancient voice within you knows things your modern mind has forgotten. It knows that healing happens in circles, not straight lines. That growth comes through cycles of expansion and contraction, like breathing. That wholeness includes both light and shadow, both strength and vulnerability, both knowing and mystery. It reminds you that you're not meant to have everything figured out, that uncertainty is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. The questions you carry are more valuable than any answers you might find because they keep you open, curious, growing. The voice speaks of your unique purpose, not as a grand mission you must accomplish, but as a quality of being you are here to embody. Perhaps you are here to be a bridge between worlds, helping others cross from unconsciousness to awareness. Perhaps you're here to be a healer, using your own wounds to create medicine for others. Perhaps you're here simply to love, to demonstrate what it looks like to choose compassion over judgment, acceptance over control. Whatever your particular gift, it emerges not from your perfection, but from your willingness to be real. Not from your achievements, but from your authenticity. Not from your knowledge, but from your willingness to remain a student of life. As you listen more deeply to this inner voice, you realize it has been speaking to you all along. In the moments when you felt inexplicably drawn to certain people or places, in the times when you knew something was wrong even when everything appeared fine, in the instances when you acted on intuition and it led you exactly where you needed to go. This voice is not separate from you, but is your truest self speaking. It is the part of you that remembers what you came here to do, what you came here to learn, what you came here to give. It is your soul's voice, and it has never stopped believing in your capacity to find your way home to yourself. Tonight, you make a commitment to listen more carefully to this ancient knowing, to trust its whispers over the world's shoulds, to honor its guidance over others' expectations, to follow its lead even when the path is unclear. The voice promises that as you learn to trust it, it will grow stronger and clearer. The more you follow its guidance, the more guidance you will receive. The more you honor your truth, the more truth will be revealed to you. This is the beginning of a new relationship with yourself, one based not on judgment but on trust, not on control but on surrender, not on perfection but on presence. You are coming home to yourself at last. The underground river. In the depths of your being flows a river that connects you to all life, all consciousness, all the love that has ever existed. This is not a metaphor, but a living reality that you can learn to access when you go deep enough within yourself. Tonight, as you rest in the quiet spaces between thoughts, you find the entrance to this underground current. The journey downward begins with letting go of the surface concerns that usually occupy your mind. The worries about tomorrow, the regrets about yesterday, the endless chatter of self-improvement and self-criticism. These concerns are not wrong. but they live in the shallow waters of consciousness. The river you seek flows much deeper. With each breath you descend further from the world of appearances into the world of essence. Here, the categories that define your everyday identity begin to blur and dissolve. You're no longer just your profession, your relationships, your history. You are something far more fundamental and vast. At first, the darkness of this descent might feel frightening. You have been taught to stay in the well-lit areas of rational thought and acceptable emotion, but this darkness is not empty. It is full of potential, pregnant with possibilities that cannot emerge in the harsh light of judgment and control. As you go deeper, you begin to sense the presence of others who have made this journey before you. Not their personalities or individual stories, but their essence, the part of them that transcends personal identity. You realize you're not alone in this exploration, but part of an ancient lineage of seekers who have discovered that the answers they sought were never outside themselves. The river, when you finally reach it, is unlike any earthly waterway. It flows with liquid light, carrying currents of pure love, undiluted wisdom, unlimited compassion. To step into this river is to remember what you are beneath all the accumulated layers of conditioning and protection. Here, in this underground current, the wounds that have defined so much of your journey reveal their deeper purpose. They were not random cruelties inflicted by an indifferent universe, but precisely what was needed to crack open your heart, to shatter the illusions that kept you small, to force you to seek something deeper than surface satisfaction. Every rejection you experienced was preparing you to find the unconditional acceptance that lives within you. Every abandonment was teaching you to rely on the presence that never leaves. Every criticism was inviting you to discover the voice that sees your true worth. The river shows you that your pain was never meaningless, but it was also never permanent. Like everything in the world of form, it arose, served its purpose, and will eventually dissolve back into the vast wholeness from which it emerged. You're not your pain any more than you are your joy. You're the awareness in which both arise and pass away. As you float in this current of liquid light, you feel your individual boundaries beginning to soften, not disappearing entirely, but becoming more permeable, more fluid. You begin to sense the experiences of others not as separate from your own, but as different notes in the same cosmic symphony. The love you have been seeking outside yourself is revealed to be the very substance of your being. Not love as emotion or attachment, but love as the fundamental force that holds the universe together. You are not someone who needs to find love, but someone who is made of love, who has temporarily forgotten this truth and is now remembering. This remembering changes everything and nothing. You are still the same person with the same history, the same challenges, the same human needs. But now you carry within you the knowing that these surface experiences are waves on an ocean of infinite depth and beauty. The river carries you through territories of consciousness you did not know existed. Places where time moves differently, where cause and effect follow laws more subtle than those governing the physical world. Here, you meet aspects of yourself that exist beyond your current lifetime, connections that transcend individual identity. You encounter what the depth psychologists call the collective unconscious, the shared repository of human experience and wisdom. Here live the archetypal energies that have shaped human consciousness since the beginning: the mother, the father, the warrior, the sage, the lover, the trickster. You see how these universal patterns have been playing out in your individual life. Your personal struggles reveal themselves as variations on eternal themes. Your journey from innocence through experience toward wisdom is the same journey countless others have taken. You're both utterly unique and completely universal, an individual expression of patterns that are larger than any single life. The river shows you that healing is not about fixing what is broken, but about remembering what was never broken. Beneath all the wounds and adaptations, beneath all the fear and protection, your essential nature remains intact. Like a diamond buried under layers of mud, it may be obscured, but it cannot be damaged. This recognition brings a profound relaxation, a deep exhale you feel you have been holding for lifetimes. You do not need to become something other than what you are. You do not need to achieve some future state of perfection. You need only to remember and embody what you have always been. The wisdom that emerges from this remembering is not intellectual, but cellular. It permeates every aspect of your being, changing not just how you think, but how you breathe, how you move, how you relate to yourself and others. This is the wisdom that cannot be lost because it is not acquired but revealed. As the river carries you back toward the surface of ordinary consciousness, you understand that you can return to these depths whenever you choose. This underground current is not a place you visit, but a dimension of reality that is always available. Learning to access it regularly becomes a spiritual practice, more powerful than any external ritual or technique. The person who returns from this journey is the same person who began it, but forever changed. You carry within you now the direct experience of your own depths, the knowing that whatever challenges you face on the surface, infinite resources flow beneath. You have touched the source from which all healing springs. This knowing becomes your anchor in times of storm, your compass when the path is unclear, your reminder that no matter how lost you may feel in the world of appearances, you can never be truly lost because you can never be separated from your own essential nature. The river continues to flow within you, carrying its gifts of wisdom and love into every moment of your life. Learning to live from this depth rather than from the surface, fears and desires becomes the great work of your remaining years. The Council of Selves. In the inner reaches of your psyche, a gathering is taking place. Representatives from every stage of your life have come together in council, each carrying their own wisdom, their own wounds, their own gifts. This is not a meeting you have convened, but one that has been calling itself into being as you have grown ready to hear what each part of yourself has to say. The child you once were sits at this council table, not as a memory, but as a living presence within you. They carry the wonder you have forgotten, the spontaneity you have sacrificed, the capacity for joy that asked for nothing but permission to express itself. They also carry the wounds that shaped your early understanding of love, safety, and belonging. This inner child speaks of needs that were never fully met, dreams that were dismissed as impractical, emotions that were labelled as too much or not enough. They have been waiting patiently for you to turn toward them with the attention and care they never received from the adults who were supposed to protect them. Beside the child sits the adolescent you once were, burning with idealism and rage at the hypocrisies of the adult world. This part of yourself refused to accept the compromises that others demanded, insisting that authenticity was more important than acceptance. They carry the fire that you later learned to bank but should never fully extinguish. The young adult you once were enters the council carrying both hope and terror about the future. They made choices based on who they thought they should become, rather than who they actually were. Some of these choices served you well. Others led you into years of living someone else's life. Each decade of your existence is represented here, each carrying its own flavour of wisdom earned through experience. The person you were in your 20s, so certain about everything and wrong about so much. The person you were in your 30s, beginning to understand that life was more complex than your idealism had allowed. The person you were in your 40s, if you have lived that long, starting to feel the weight of time and the preciousness of the years remaining. But this council includes more than just your chronological selves. Here too are the archetypal aspects of your being that transcend time and circumstance. The warrior who has fought for your survival and growth, the lover who has reached toward connection despite the risk of rejection, the sage who has slowly accumulated wisdom through trial and error. The mother sits here too, whether or not you have biological children. This is the part of you that nurtures and protects, that sees potential and tends growth. Beside her sits the father, the part that provides structure and guidance, that sets boundaries and enforces consequences. The trickster is present as well, the part of you that refuses to take life too seriously, that finds humour in absurdity, that reminds you that playing is as important as working. This aspect of yourself has been crucial in helping you survive situations that might otherwise have destroyed you. The shadow attends this council too, no longer banished to the outskirts of consciousness, but acknowledged as an essential part of your wholeness. They carry all the qualities you have rejected in yourself, all the potential you have denied, all the energy you have spent trying to be acceptable rather than authentic. Each member of this inner council has something important to contribute to your current life situation. The child's creativity and wonder, the adolescent's passion for justice and authenticity, the young adult's willingness to take risks and start over, the middle-aged self's growing understanding of what truly matters. But this is not just a gathering of your personal aspects. Present too are the ancestral voices that speak through your DNA, your family patterns, your inherited traumas and gifts. Grandmother's resilience, grandfather's determination, the great aunt you never met but whose artistic talent lives on in your hands. Some of these ancestral voices carry wisdom and blessing. Others carry warnings about patterns that need to be broken, cycles that need to be interrupted. Your personal healing serves not just yourself, but all those who came before and all those who will come after. The Council discusses the challenges you currently face, but from a perspective much broader than your ordinary consciousness can access. Problems that seem insurmountable from your everyday viewpoint reveal multiple possible solutions when viewed from the collective wisdom of all yourselves. The part of you that survived childhood trauma knows about resilience in ways your intellectual self cannot comprehend. The part of you that has loved and lost knows about the courage required for authentic connection. The part of you that has failed and recovered knows about the temporary nature of setbacks. Conflicts that have torn at you for years begin to resolve as different aspects of yourself finally get to speak their truth and be heard. The part that wants security and the part that craves adventure discover they are not enemies but complementary forces. The part that needs solitude and the part that needs connection find ways to honour both sets of needs. The Council reveals that many of your internal struggles have been not between right and wrong, but between different valid aspects of your nature trying to get their needs met. When all parts feel heard and valued, they become allies rather than adversaries. Your inner critic, who has attended every council meeting uninvited, finally reveals their true nature. Beneath their harsh exterior lies a protector who's been trying to keep you safe from rejection and failure. When you understand their intention, their voice begins to soften, their approach becomes more collaborative. The perfectionist speaks of their terror of being found inadequate. The people-pleaser reveals their deep fear of abandonment. The rebel explains their refusal to be controlled. Each strategy that has caused you pain reveals itself as an attempt at protection that is no longer needed in its original form. As the Council continues, you begin to see possibilities for integration that you never imagined. Instead of trying to choose between different aspects of yourself, you can learn to orchestrate them like a conductor leading a symphony. Each instrument has its place, its time to lead, and its time to support. This integration does not mean that all internal conflict disappears. You are too complex, too human for that. But it means that conflicts can be held within a larger framework of self-acceptance. Different parts of yourself can disagree without going to war. The Council teaches you that leadership of your inner community is not about dominance but about wisdom, not about control but about coordination. Like any good leader, you learn to listen to all perspectives before making decisions, to honour the concerns of all stakeholders while moving toward your larger vision. This inner democracy requires practice. You are learning to hear all voices without being overwhelmed by them, to honour all needs without being paralysed by competing demands. It is complex work, but it is the work that leads to authentic wholeness. As this gathering draws toward a close, each member of your inner council offers a gift for the journey ahead. The child offers curiosity and wonder. The adolescent offers passion and idealism. The young adult offers courage and energy. The elder offers perspective and wisdom. You realize that you are never alone because you carry within yourself an entire community of support and guidance. In times of crisis, you can convene this council and draw upon resources you did not know you possessed. In times of joy, you can celebrate with aspects of yourself that have waited long for good news. The integration that happens through this inner council work is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. As you continue to grow and change, new aspects of yourself will emerge and request inclusion. The council chamber of your inner world is always ready to welcome new members. You leave this gathering with a deeper appreciation for your own complexity and a greater compassion for the various parts of yourself that are all trying their best to help you thrive. This self-compassion becomes the foundation for genuine compassion toward others, who are also carrying their own inner councils, their own complex communities of selves. The wisdom of the council becomes available to you in your daily life as you learn to check in with different aspects of yourself before making important decisions. What does your inner child think about this opportunity? How does your inner adolescent feel about this compromise? What does your inner elder know about this pattern? This internal consultation process slows down your reactions and deepens your responses. Instead of operating from just one aspect of yourself, you begin to access the full spectrum of your inner resources. This is what integration looks like in practice. Not uniformity, but unity. Not simplicity, but wholeness. The ancient wisdom speaks deep in the silence of this healing night, a voice emerges that belongs to ages past yet speaks directly to your present moment. This is the voice of those who have walked the path of individuation before you, who have faced the darkness within themselves and emerged not defeated but transformed. Among these voices, one speaks with particular clarity and depth. His words carry the weight of a lifetime spent exploring the mysteries of the human psyche, mapping the territories of consciousness that others fear to enter. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. These words land in your awareness like seeds in fertile soil. You begin to understand that what you have experienced as random misfortune or inexplicable patterns in your life may actually be the workings of unconscious forces within your own psyche, seeking expression and integration, the relationships that repeatedly wound you in similar ways, the self-sabotage that emerges just when success seems within reach, the compulsions that you know are harmful but cannot seem to resist. All of these reveal themselves as messages from parts of yourself that have been operating outside of conscious awareness. But this recognition brings not despair, but hope. If these patterns originate within you, then you also have the power to transform them. The unconscious forces that have been working against you can become allies when you learn to recognize and work with them consciously. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. This wisdom illuminates the mystery of projection, why certain people trigger such intense reactions in you, while leaving others unmoved. The qualities that most annoy or threaten you in others are often reflections of aspects of yourself that you have not yet acknowledged or integrated. The boss whose controlling behavior infuriates you may be reflecting your own need for control that you have never admitted. The friend whose neediness exhausts you may be mirroring your own unmet needs that you have learned to hide. The relative whose criticism wounds you so deeply may be speaking in the same voice as your own inner critic. Understanding projection does not mean excusing harmful behavior or pretending that others' actions do not affect you, but it offers you a powerful tool for reclaiming your own disowned energy. Instead of being at the mercy of others' behavior, you can use your reactions as a map to parts of yourself that are seeking integration. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. This distinction cuts to the heart of the spiritual journey. For years, perhaps decades, you have sought fulfillment, meaning, love, and peace in external circumstances. The perfect relationship, the ideal job, the right living situation, the achievement that would finally prove your worth. But each external attainment, no matter how satisfying initially, eventually reveals its limitations. The relationship that was going to complete you creates its own set of challenges. The job that was going to fulfill you becomes routine. The achievement that was going to validate you loses its shine. This is not because you are choosing wrongly, but because you are looking in the wrong direction. What you seek cannot be found in external arrangements, but only in the quality of consciousness you bring to whatever circumstances arise. The awakening that comes from looking inside is not a withdrawal from the world, but a transformation of how you engage with it. When you stop depending on external conditions for your peace, you become free to participate in life from a place of fullness rather than need. Your vision becomes clear when you have the courage to look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. The courage required for this inward gaze cannot be understated. It means being willing to see aspects of yourself that you have spent your life avoiding. The selfishness you have denied, the anger you have suppressed, the neediness you have tried to transcend. The pettiness you have pretended does not exist. But this courage is rewarded with clarity that no amount of external knowledge can provide. When you know yourself fully, including your shadow aspects, you stop projecting your unconscious contents onto others. Your relationships become cleaner, more honest, more authentic. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. This profound statement reframes your entire life journey. You are not here to become someone other than who you are. You're not here to perfect yourself according to external standards. You're here to discover and embody your authentic nature. This may seem like it should be easy, but it is actually one of the most challenging tasks a human being can undertake. From birth, you are shaped by the expectations and needs of others. You learn to modify your behavior, your emotions, even your thoughts to fit into the family system, the educational system, the social system. Layer by layer, you cover your authentic self with adaptations designed to help you survive and belong. By adulthood, you may have so many layers that you have forgotten what lies beneath them. The journey of becoming who you truly are requires the patient work of removing these layers without losing the valuable skills and insights they have given you. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. This wisdom illuminates why relationships are such powerful catalysts for growth and why they can be so challenging. Every significant relationship you enter changes you, whether you're conscious of this process or not. The person you were before your first love is not the same person you were after. The parent you were before your children challenged you is not the parent you became through learning to meet their needs. The friend you were before you experienced betrayal is not the friend you became after learning to trust more wisely. These transformations are not always comfortable. Growth rarely is. But when you understand that change is the natural result of authentic encounter, you can approach relationships with more patience for the process and more curiosity about who you are becoming through connection with others. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. This statement names the heart of the spiritual journey. It would seem that self-acceptance should be easy, natural, automatic. Instead, for most people, it represents the work of a lifetime. You've been conditioned to believe that acceptance leads to complacency, that if you stop criticizing yourself, you will stop growing. But the opposite is true. It is only from a foundation of self-acceptance that genuine growth becomes possible. When you're constantly at war with yourself, most of your energy goes into internal conflict, rather than into creative expression and authentic living. Self-acceptance does not mean giving up on growth, but creating the conditions in which genuine transformation becomes possible. The terrifying aspect of complete self-acceptance is that it means embracing not just your light but your shadow, not just your strengths but your weaknesses, not just your successes but your failures. It means accepting that you are human, which includes being flawed, limited, and imperfect. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you've built against it. This wisdom reframes the entire search for love that has driven so much of your life. You do not need to find love because love is your natural state. What you need to do is identify and dismantle the walls you have built to protect yourself from the very thing you most desire. These barriers were built for good reasons. Past experiences of rejection, betrayal, abandonment taught you that love was dangerous, that opening your heart led to pain, so you developed strategies to keep yourself safe, emotional walls, tests that others must pass, conditions that must be met before you allow intimacy. But these same barriers that protected you from pain also prevent you from receiving the love that is available. The walls that keep out hurt also keep out healing. The conditions you place on love make it impossible for others to meet you in the spontaneous, unconditional way that true intimacy requires. Dismantling these barriers requires tremendous courage, because it means becoming vulnerable again. It means risking the very experiences you have spent your life trying to avoid. But it also means becoming available for the depth of connection that makes life worth living. Everything you need, you already have. You are complete right now. You are a whole, total person, not an apprentice person on the way to someplace else. This teaching challenges the fundamental assumption that drives most human suffering, the belief that you are incomplete, inadequate, lacking something essential that you must acquire through effort, achievement, or relationship. From this belief springs the endless seeking that characterizes modern life. The pursuit of more money, better relationships, perfect health, spiritual enlightenment. The constant feeling that happiness is just around the corner, waiting for you to fix what is wrong or get what is missing. But what if nothing is actually missing? What if the sense of incompleteness is not an accurate assessment of your condition, but a misunderstanding of your nature? What if you are already whole and have simply forgotten this truth? This forgetting is not accidental but conditioned. From early childhood, you receive messages that your worth depends on your performance, your behavior, your ability to meet others' expectations. You learn to see yourself as a project to be improved rather than a being to be appreciated. Remembering your completeness does not mean becoming passive or giving up on growth, but it means growing from fullness rather than from lack. changing because you are called to express more of who you are rather than because you are trying to fix what is wrong with you. The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity. The creative mind plays with the objects it loves. This wisdom speaks to the difference between authentic creativity and forced productivity. True creativity emerges not from the mind trying to solve problems, but from the heart playing with possibilities. It comes from love, not from obligation. You have spent so much energy trying to force outcomes, pushing yourself to produce results, analyzing your way to solutions. But the breakthrough moments in your life have probably come when you stopped trying so hard and allowed something to emerge from a deeper place. This play instinct is not frivolous but essential. It is how you discover new ways of being, new solutions to old problems, new expressions of your authentic self. When you play with ideas, relationships, creative projects, you enter a state of receptivity where innovation becomes possible, but this requires giving up the illusion of control that has driven so much of your adult life. Playing means not knowing where you're going, being willing to experiment and fail, trusting the process more than the outcome. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. This statement captures the essence of personal transformation. Your past experiences, no matter how traumatic or limiting, do not determine your future unless you allow them to. You always have the power to choose your response to what has happened to you. This is not about denying the impact of trauma or pretending that past experiences do not affect you. They do affect you, deeply and sometimes permanently. But they do not define you unless you give them that power. The person you choose to become emerges from your decisions in each present moment. The way you interpret your experiences, the meaning you extract from your suffering, the love you choose to offer despite being hurt, these choices shape your character more than the events themselves. This choosing is not a one-time decision but a constant practice. Every day, every moment, you have the opportunity to choose who you want to be. You can choose to be defined by your wounds or transformed by them. You can choose to remain trapped in old patterns or to create new possibilities. The word happiness would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness. This wisdom challenges the modern obsession with positive emotions and the avoidance of anything that feels difficult or painful. You have been taught to pursue happiness as if it were the ultimate goal, to see sadness as a problem to be solved rather than a natural part of the human experience. But emotions exist in relationship to each other. Without sadness, happiness becomes meaningless. Without struggle, ease has no value. Without darkness, light cannot be appreciated. The goal is not to eliminate difficult emotions, but to develop the capacity to feel them without being overwhelmed by them. This capacity comes through practice, through gradually increasing your tolerance for the full spectrum of human feeling. As you learn to be present with sadness without drowning in it, with anger without being consumed by it, with fear without being paralyzed by it, you develop emotional resilience. This resilience is not numbness, but sensitivity with strength. It is the ability to feel deeply without losing your center, to be moved by life without being destroyed by it. This is what emotional maturity looks like. Not the absence of difficult feelings, but the wisdom to navigate them skillfully. Your perception will become clear only when you can look into your soul. The clarity you seek in external circumstances can only come from internal clarity. When you're confused about who you are, what you want, what you value, everything outside of you will seem equally confusing. But when you know yourself deeply, when you have explored the landscape of your own soul, external decisions become much clearer. You know what serves your growth and what doesn't. You can distinguish between opportunities that align with your authentic path and distractions that pull you away from it. This inner clarity is not achieved through thinking, but through feeling, not through analysis, but through presence. It comes from spending time in silence, in solitude, in contemplation of your own depths. The soul has its own logic, its own timing, its own way of knowing. Learning to trust this inner guidance requires developing a different kind of intelligence than the rational mind provides. It requires learning the language of intuition, feeling, and embodied wisdom. As these ancient words settle into the depths of your being, you feel something shifting in your understanding of your own journey. What you have experienced as personal struggle reveals itself as participation in the universal human task of becoming conscious, of integrating the divided aspects of yourself, of learning to love without reservation. You're not alone in this work. You are part of a vast community of souls who have undertaken this same journey across all times and cultures. The wisdom that guides you has been tested by countless others who have walked this path before you. The voice that has been speaking grows quieter now, but its presence remains. You understand that this wisdom is not separate from you but lives within you, waiting to be accessed whenever you create the space for deep listening. This inner wisdom will continue to unfold throughout your life, revealing new layers of understanding as you grow ready to receive them. The journey of individuation, of becoming who you truly are, is not a destination, but a way of traveling through life with increasing consciousness and authenticity. The return to wholeness. As the deepest part of this night's journey begins to draw toward its completion, you find yourself standing at the edge of a vast ocean that stretches beyond the horizon. This is not the turbulent sea of emotional storms you have known, but the calm, infinite waters of your own essential being. Each wave that touches the shore carries with it some aspect of your experience from this healing passage. The tears you have shed, the fears you have faced, the parts of yourself you have reclaimed, the wisdom you have remembered, all of it flows back to its source in the boundless ocean of consciousness that you are. You understand now that healing is not about fixing what is broken, but about remembering what was never broken. Beneath all the wounds and adaptations, beneath all the strategies for survival and belonging, your essential nature has remained intact. Like the ocean beneath the waves, it is always there, always whole, always ready to receive whatever arises on its surface. The person you were when this journey began has not disappeared, but has been revealed as a smaller self living within a much larger reality. All the roles you play, all the identities you carry, all the stories you tell about yourself are like clothes you put on and take off. They are not who you are, but expressions of who you are. This recognition brings a profound relaxation, a settling into yourself that feels like coming home after a long journey in foreign lands. You do not need to become someone other than who you are. You do not need to achieve some future state of perfection. You need only to inhabit more fully the truth of your being that exists right now. The shadows you have carried begin to transform in the light of this recognition. They do not disappear, for they are part of your wholeness, but they lose their power to define or diminish you. Your anger becomes the fierce protector of what you love. Your sadness becomes the gateway to compassion. Your fear becomes the wisdom that keeps you safe without keeping you small. Integration happens not through effort, but through acceptance. As you embrace all aspects of yourself with equal love, they naturally find their proper place in the symphony of your being. The parts that have been at war with each other discover that they are all serving the same deeper purpose: your growth, your healing, your gradual awakening to the magnificent being you have always been. The relationships in your life begin to shift as you relate to others, from this place of wholeness rather than from your wounds. You no longer need others to complete you because you remember your own completeness. You no longer need their approval because you have learned to approve of yourself. You no longer need to fix them because you have stopped trying to fix yourself. This does not make you indifferent to others' pain or needs. Instead, it makes you more genuinely helpful because your assistance comes from fullness rather than emptiness, from choice rather than compulsion. When you help others from wholeness, you empower them to find their own wholeness rather than creating dependence. The work you are called to do in the world becomes clearer as you stop trying to be someone you are not and start expressing who you actually are. Your unique gifts, the ones that emerge from the intersection of your wounds and your wisdom, become medicine for a world that desperately needs what you have learned through your journey. You realize that your struggles were not random suffering, but a curriculum designed to develop exactly the capacities that the world needs you to offer. Your sensitivity, which you may have seen as weakness, becomes the gift of deep empathy. Your struggles with darkness become the ability to guide others through their own dark nights. The healing that has happened within you ripples outward in ways you may never fully see. Your increased authenticity gives others permission to be authentic. Your self-compassion models a different way of relating to human imperfection. Your willingness to feel deeply shows others that it is safe to open their hearts. This ripple effect extends beyond the people you directly encounter. It touches the collective unconscious, adding your healing to the growing reservoir of consciousness available to all humanity. Every person who does their inner work makes it easier for others to do theirs. You are part of this global awakening whether you realize it or not. The future looks different now, not because external circumstances have necessarily changed, but because you relate to uncertainty with curiosity rather than terror. You trust the process of your own unfolding enough to meet whatever comes with presence rather than reactivity. This does not mean you will never struggle again or that difficult emotions will never arise. But you now have a different relationship to struggle, seeing it as information rather than evidence of failure, as invitation rather than punishment. The practices that have opened you to this healing become part of your daily life. The willingness to feel what you feel rather than what you think you should feel. The commitment to tell yourself the truth even when it is uncomfortable. The choice to treat yourself with the same kindness you would offer a dear friend. These practices are not techniques you use when you're broken, but ways of being that maintain your connection to wholeness. They become as natural as breathing, as automatic as the beating of your heart. The voice of your inner critic, while it may still arise from time to time, no longer has the power to convince you of your unworthiness. You have heard too clearly the voice of your deeper wisdom to be fooled by the old stories of inadequacy and shame. When critical thoughts arise, you can acknowledge them without being ruled by them. You understand now that thoughts are not facts but phenomena arising in consciousness. You are not your thoughts any more than you are your emotions or your physical sensations. You are the awareness in which all these experiences appear and disappear. This awareness is vast enough to hold everything that arises without being damaged by it. Like the sky that remains unchanged, whether it contains clouds or sunshine, storms or calm, your essential nature remains whole regardless of what experiences pass through it. The loneliness that may have driven much of your seeking dissolves as you recognize that you're never truly alone. You carry within yourself an entire ecosystem of wisdom, love and guidance. The ancestors who survived so that you could exist. The inner child who holds your capacity for wonder. The wise elder who can see the bigger picture. Even in physical solitude, you are surrounded by the invisible web of connection that links all life. Every breath you take has been breathed by countless others before you. Every thought you think emerges from the collective intelligence of humanity. Every love you give adds to the love available in the world. The gratitude that arises is not for specific circumstances, but for existence itself. For the privilege of being conscious in a universe where consciousness can know itself through your awareness. For the opportunity to love, to grow, to contribute to the healing of the world through your own healing. This gratitude is not sentimental but profound, arising from a recognition of the miraculous nature of your very being. Against all odds, in a vast universe that is mostly empty space, you exist. You are aware. You can love. You can choose. You can heal. As dawn approaches in the world outside, you carry within yourself the remembrance of what you have always been, whole, worthy, beloved. Not because of what you have accomplished or achieved, but simply because you are. This remembrance will fade and return, strengthen and weaken like all things in the world of form, but now you know how to find your way back to it. The path is always there, always available, always leading home to the truth of who you are. The night belongs to you, but so does the dawn that is coming. So does the day that will unfold with its challenges and opportunities. So does the life that stretches ahead with all its possibilities for growth, for love, for the continued discovery of the infinite depths of your being. You're ready now to meet whatever comes, not from the old place of fear and protection, but from the new place of trust and openness. You're ready to live from wholeness rather than from woundedness, from love rather than from fear. The healing continues, but now it is no longer desperate seeking but joyful unfolding. You're not trying to become someone else but learning to be more fully yourself. You're not trying to escape your humanity but to embrace it completely. This is the return to wholeness, not the achievement of perfection, but the acceptance of your perfectly imperfect human nature. Not the elimination of all problems, but the discovery that you are larger than any problem you might face. The night has done its work. The healing has taken root. The journey continues, but now you walk it as someone who knows their way home. The dawn of integration. As the first light of dawn touches the horizon of your consciousness, you find yourself changed in ways both subtle and profound. The transformation that has taken place through this night's journey is not the dramatic metamorphosis of fantasy, but the quiet revolution of remembering who you have always been beneath the layers of forgetting. You rise from this healing darkness, carrying within yourself gifts that cannot be taken away. The knowledge that you are worthy of love simply because you exist. The understanding that your sensitivity is strength, not weakness. The recognition that your wounds have become sources of wisdom and compassion. The world outside your window has not changed, but your relationship to it has been transformed. The same challenges that seemed overwhelming yesterday now appear as opportunities for practicing the self-compassion you have learned. The same relationships that triggered your deepest wounds now become laboratories for expressing your growing authenticity. You no longer approach life as someone who is broken trying to be fixed, but as someone who is whole learning to express that wholeness more fully. This shift in perspective changes everything while changing nothing. You are still you, but you are you with the remembrance of your essential nature intact. The integration that follows such deep healing work is gradual and organic. Like water seeping into dry earth, the insights and transformations of this night will continue to permeate your life in the days and weeks to come. Some changes will be immediately apparent. Others will reveal themselves only in hindsight. You may find yourself responding differently to stress, no longer automatically going into fight or flight mode, but pausing to check in with your body, your emotions, your deeper knowing. You may discover that the voices of criticism and judgment, while they still arise, no longer carry the authority they once did. The relationships that have been sources of pain may begin to heal as you show up differently within them. When you no longer need others to validate your worth, you can love them more freely. When you stop taking their behavior as evidence of your value, you can respond to them with greater compassion and clearer boundaries. Some relationships may not survive your transformation. Those that were based on your willingness to abandon yourself for the comfort of others may no longer be sustainable. This loss, while painful, makes space for connections that can honor and celebrate who you are becoming. New relationships may enter your life, drawn by your increasing authenticity and emotional availability. People who are also committed to growth and healing recognize these qualities in others. You begin to attract companions for the journey, rather than co-conspirators in old patterns of unconsciousness. Your work in the world takes on new meaning as you understand that your unique contribution emerges from the intersection of your gifts and your healing. The very experiences that once seemed like obstacles to your success reveal themselves as essential preparation for the service you're meant to offer. Whether your work is raising children or running corporations, teaching students or healing patients, creating art or growing food, you bring to it now a depth of presence and authenticity that transforms not just what you do, but how you do it. You become a healing presence in whatever environment you inhabit. The creative impulses that may have been stifled by years of self-doubt and criticism begin to flow more freely. When you're no longer worried about being perfect, you can risk being authentic. When you stop needing others' approval, you can express what wants to be expressed through you. This creativity is not limited to traditionally artistic pursuits, but includes the art of living itself. The way you arrange your living space, prepare your meals, interact with strangers, respond to difficulties, all become opportunities for creative expression when you are no longer bound by rigid ideas about how things should be done. The body that has carried so much pain and tension begins to relax into a new relationship with you. As you stop fighting against your physical form and start collaborating with it, old patterns of illness and dysfunction often begin to shift. The body has an extraordinary capacity for healing when the nervous system feels safe enough to move out of constant vigilance. Sleep may come more easily as your mind learns to trust the process of letting go. Dreams may become more vivid and meaningful as your unconscious feels safe to communicate more directly with your conscious mind. Even digestion may improve as your system is no longer constantly flooded with stress hormones. The spiritual hunger that may have driven years of seeking begins to transform into spiritual satisfaction, not because you have found the ultimate answers, but because you have discovered that the seeker and the sought are one. What you were looking for outside yourself has been revealed as your own deepest nature. This does not end your spiritual exploration, but grounds it in direct experience rather than conceptual understanding. You may find yourself drawn to practices that deepen your connection to this inner wisdom, rather than those that promise to give you something you don't already have. Prayer becomes more like conversation with your own depths. Meditation becomes less about achieving special states and more about resting in the awareness that you always are. Study becomes not the accumulation of knowledge, but the remembrance of what you have always known. The fear of death that haunts so much of human existence begins to lose its grip as you recognize that what you essentially are cannot be destroyed. Your personality, your body, your individual life story are temporary expressions of something eternal. This recognition brings not carelessness about life, but a deeper appreciation for its preciousness. You begin to live with the urgency of someone who knows that time is limited and the patience of someone who trusts that everything unfolds in its proper timing. This paradox is one of the hallmarks of integrated consciousness, the ability to hold seemingly contradictory truths simultaneously. The wisdom traditions that once seemed foreign or incomprehensible now speak directly to your experience. You recognize in their ancient words the same insights you have discovered through your own journey inward. You realize that the path you have walked is the same path that seekers have walked for millennia. This recognition connects you to a vast lineage of human beings who have undertaken the work of consciousness. You're not alone in your struggles or unique in your insights. You are part of an eternal conversation about what it means to be human, to suffer, to heal, to wake up to the true nature of existence. Your story becomes not just your personal narrative, but a variation on the universal themes of loss and recovery, wounding and healing, forgetting and remembering. This places your individual experience in a larger context that gives it meaning beyond personal satisfaction. The integration continues as you learn to live from this expanded awareness while still honoring your human needs and limitations. You do not become superhuman, but more fully human. You do not transcend your emotions, but develop a different relationship to them. Days will come when you forget these insights, when old patterns resurface, when you feel as lost and broken as ever. This is not failure, but part of the spiral nature of growth. Each time you remember and return to wholeness, you do so from a slightly different place, with slightly more stability and understanding. The work of integration never ends because consciousness itself is always evolving. But now you have a foundation to build upon, an inner compass that points toward healing, a home within yourself that you can always return to no matter how far you may wander. As this first dawn after your night of deep healing illuminates the world around you, you step into your day carrying the quiet confidence of someone who has remembered their way home to themselves. The light that rises outside mirrors the light that has been rekindled within. You are ready now to meet whatever this day and this life may bring, not as someone who has been broken and repaired, but as someone who has discovered the unbreakable nature of their deepest being. The healing continues, but now it unfolds from strength rather than desperation, from love rather than fear. The night belongs to you, but so does this dawn, and so does the endless possibility of each moment to choose love over fear, presence over preoccupation, authenticity over approval. You carry within yourself everything you need for the journey ahead. The healing is not complete because consciousness itself is always expanding, always discovering new depths, always finding new ways to express love in the world. But the foundation has been laid. The connection has been established. The remembrance has taken root. You are whole. You have always been whole. Now you know it. The night of healing transforms into the dawn of living. The real journey begins now.